we believe that every person is unique and should understand how to achieve his or her or their dreams. And we also see that wealth managers, life and pension providers, whoever, that there was a very strong focus on standardization over the last couple of years in order to save costs. But because the wealth situation, the life situation, the financial goals, it's for nobody the same. There's always a difference, and it starts with the age, the gender, which determines expected life end. So all of that is so different that we don't understand why people should be treated into 5 categories with regard to strategic asset allocations.
Marc, thank you so much for taking time to speak to us today. It's great to meet you.
Thanks, likewise.
All right, Marc, let's just to get started, tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us what it is that you do and who you are.
Yeah, so my name is Marc Mettler. I'm leading business development, sales and marketing at 3rd-eyes Analytics. We're a Swiss-based fintech founded in 2015. I joined during the seed round in 2017 and operationally active since the beginning of 2018 as head of business development.
Great. So let's hear a little bit more about what it is that 3rd-eyes Analytics does, and specifically, let's focus on what's the value proposition of the company.
Yeah. So what we're doing is we're effectively automating and improving wealth planning. You may know how financial planning works. There's some downsides to how this works. And we're taking a little bit of a different angle, and we're automating that and improve that. So if you do a financial plan with an advisor, what you get is a result after a couple of days or weeks, one scenario, one specific situation. So I want to retire early, and I need, for example, 10,000 Swisses to adhere to my living standard during retirement. Now what we do is we first of all take the whole balance sheet of the client, look at the whole balance sheet. So we take a holistic approach that includes also non-bankable assets which might be used to achieve or increase the probability to reach financial goals. And we simulate thousands of capital market scenarios. So for example, we simulated also the COVID crisis, forward-looking in that sense. So because we simulate so many capital market scenarios, we can really optimize your assets and liabilities in such a way that you maximize the probability to achieve financial goals by means of strategic asset allocation. So we don't come with a result which says you need to save 300 Swisses more on a monthly basis, but we come with a result which says if you invest your advisory assets 10% into European equities, 15% into emerging markets, 20% into the US, plus a couple of bonds, plus a couple of cash, maybe real estate, maybe alternative investment, whatever it is, like this, we really maximize the probability that you achieve your financial goals. We can still obviously calculate what you would miss in whatever kind of capital market scenario on a monthly basis, but it's really about how to invest in the best possible manner to achieve your financial goals in all possible capital market scenarios. So we turn away from that approach, which is I invest based on my risk profile into a balanced investment strategy. 1 out of 5, balanced, capital gain, however they are called, fixed income, however these are called, but we hyper-personalize those strategic asset allocations and create really a bespoke strategic asset allocation out of, for example, 10 to the power of 40 different combinations. And we just search for that investment strategy which is best to you to maximize the probability to achieve your financial goals. So that's the one part of which we do. And the second core competency is, besides planning and optimizing your assets and liabilities, is effectively sustainable investing. So we've launched, I would say, the world's first climate change simulator and optimizer. So we can show directly how a person is affected by climate change, by increasing temperatures, with regard to reaching financial goals. That's all based on the Nobel Prize winning study out of 2018 and more studies which we develop currently. But in the end, we really make climate change tangible. That's one part of our sustainability, our sustainable investing functionality. And we can build on that. We can build climate robust strategic asset allocations which maximize, again, the probability to reach financial goals in very adverse capital market scenarios, integrating climate change as such. So 2 core competencies in short or in long, however we want it. But it's sustainable investing, and it's planning and linking planning to the investment side through optimization.
Okay, so just to recap, I'm going to make sure that I understand correctly. So one of the things that you do is that you use data to fine tune and to increase the probability of your clients reaching their financial planning targets, and that also constrains the risk level that they undertake when they invest. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, we obviously consider the risk profile of a client as a constraint in the optimization. I mean, we have to do that for regulatory purposes. But I think the key difference to standard advisory process, and we can also call it goal-based investing, the key difference is we don't risk profile a client to derive the asset allocation. What we do is we risk profile the client in order to have, mathematically speaking, a constraint on the optimization. But what we do then is we really search for that bespoke strategic asset allocation which maximizes the probability to reach financial goals. So let's take a very concrete example. We have a client who has a lot of assets and very conservative goals, wants to have 8,000 on a monthly basis to achieve the living standard, has 20 million. In a classic wealth management approach, that client will probably get kind of a balanced investment strategy or whatever, which doesn't necessarily maximize the probability to achieve the financial goals in all capital market scenarios. We would not give that much risk to that client in the strategic asset allocation because we really want to optimize that specific financial goal or these specific financial goals of a client in all possible capital market scenarios, which can be an oil crisis, a COVID crisis, internet bubble that bursts. And so we would result in a clearly lower risky investment strategy or strategic asset allocation. So really focusing primarily on the financial goals of the client.
All right, very interesting. Now, we know that organizations tend to struggle with making sense of their data, especially with unstructured data and when it's coming from various different sources. Tell us, how can 3rd-eyes analytics help this type of organizations?
It's probably less about unstructured data because we believe in a client-advisor relationship. I mean, there are self-service solutions which we offer as well, but overall, the interest and the time of a client is normally rather low to deal with financial matters. So normally a client relies on an advisor primarily in the context of I would say, rather complicated financial planning situation. So that means in a structured interview, the data is not that unstructured. So what we collect, or what the advisor collects from a client, is what are your financial goals? There can be a return goal, 3% over the remaining lifetime. It can be an early retirement goal with cash flow needs. It can be a present, an inheritance. It can be a wealth goal, always want to have 1 million to be on the safe side. Whatever these goals are, we collect them, or the advisor collects them in a structured manner, puts that into the system, and then that data is obviously stored in the system. We don't store that data forever, so we don't use client identifying data, by the way, but this is stored in our clients, so banks, asset managers, financial institutions environment. And with that data, obviously, you have 2 primary advantages. So first of all, our solutions allow to motivate clients to disclose more wealth. Because every input I do, if I add a third-party holdings, I have, so example, my client is Bank X, but the end client says I have an account at Bank Y as well, then we can show that end client how that improves the probability to achieve financial goals if we input that data into the system. So you clearly have a motivation for clients to give you the full balance sheet, transparency on the full balance sheet. And by the way, there was a recent study which is interesting. 200 clients in Switzerland questions with wealth above 1 million Swisses, more than 70% are willing to disclose that information to their bank if they get the good servicing as a consequence. So there's a willingness there to disclose. So you can easily identify share of wallet and pitch for more assets. That's the one big advantage. Second big advantage is because we can very realistically in a forward-looking manner project the different wealth or wealth in different capital market situations. So we normally project 1,000 capital market situations. That allows us to realistically and forward-lookingly calculate customer lifetime value. So that means at the very early stage in the first advisory meeting, maybe before the client has transferred assets, the advisor has a clear indication of the customer lifetime value. And this is obviously something completely new, and that obviously then also allows to properly segment the client and treat the client in the best possible manner. So probably with our solution, it's less about extracting data from unstructured documents and using AI to take out some intelligence, but it's really using data which is disclosed by a client, input that in a structured manner and making the best use of it as a consequence. Primarily for the client, because we can always improve goal achievement for a client with bespoke investment strategies, but also for the bank because they obviously get more transparency, the wealth manager, because they obviously get more transparency on the client situation. So I think it's for the best of both worlds.
Yeah, definitely. It stands in stark contrast to what we've seen some financial organizations do with basically they just standardize their offers and they put customers in these very broad categories that get very similar types of experience. Which brings me to my next question, because you've already spoken a couple of times in our conversation today about hyper-personalizing the experience. So. Yeah. I believe you said that you have the possibility, or your system has the possibility of doing 10 to the 40 permutations of personalization. So can you tell me a little bit more about what does a hyper-personalized experience looks like?
Yeah, I mean, I remember like 20 years ago, probably close to 20 years ago, I was able to design sneakers online in millions of combinations. That was an early mover at the time, or a first mover at the time, that company, and I think they went bust. But in the end, it's all about hyper-personalizations. I mean, many wealth managers focus on stock picking, stock selection, mutual fund, ETF selection, based on some preferences of the client, even regulatory enforced with regard to sustainability very, very recently. But nobody really focuses on making strategic asset allocations bespoke or hyper-personalizing strategic asset allocations. And we don't understand that because we all know that more than 85% of portfolio performance comes from strategy and plus minus 10 to 15% from timing and stock picking. So overall, the big leverage is on the strategy level. And we're, as said, hyper-personalized that. So let me make a very concrete example. Let's assume a bank has two asset classes, no sub-asset classes, just equities and cash. So obviously in 1% steps, these are already 100 combinations, 100% cash, no equities, 99 and 1, 98 and 2, etc., etc. Now if a bank has, and the client of ours has 41 asset classes, so that leads to a combination of 10 to the power of 41 combinations, which we again combine with 1,000 capital market scenarios, and we just stochastically search for that strategic asset allocation which is best for that specific client in all these capital market scenarios. And that is really then, that leads to a situation that no client has the same strategic asset allocation as the other. And because you can automatically rebalance these, it's of no additional effort compared to having 5. So you create a tailored experience, but you automate it in the back end, And that's all what hyperpersonalization is about.
Well, that's really revolutionary. Let's talk a bit about perhaps the other side of this availability of data, because I think you lay a clear case of why having more data and even, as you mentioned, being willing to disclose more of your wealth is beneficial for clients. But I guess when we talk about data availability and there's always this concern that some clients might have about, well, I don't really want my financial services organization to know that much about me, because that might lead them to perhaps nudge me in directions where my interest might not be their main focus. What do you say to those concerns?
So two things primarily. I mean, as said before, there was a recent study conducted by Simo Kochu, which will be published. There was an FI News article recently. They asked 200 clients, affluent to high net worth clients, whether they would be willing to disclose. 70% plus said yes. There's a similar study 2019 from Ernst & Young on the future of wealth management, where the outcome is more or less the same. So first of all, it seems that the clients are willing to disclose in order to get better servicing. I think that's a given with those two studies. On the other hand side, I think data protection in the EU has significantly increased with the introduction of GDPR. So the client is in the end the owner of the data, can ask for a deletion and all of that. So I think obviously there are also always bad apples, but I mean, first of all, it's about the client, what he or she is disclosing. While on the other hand, it's about regulation which ensures control of the data. So as long as, and that brings me probably to a topic which we should not touch too deeply on, because that's going to be a long conversation. But it's obviously all about the alignment of incentive systems in banks, wealth managers, and the likes to ensure that clients are nudged into the right direction and not the wrong. So I think regulation helps to overcome these concerns. Clients are willing to share, but it's up to them. We're not extracting data in a hidden manner. We're using the data which they disclose in order to have a better servicing in the end.
All right, let's shift gears a little bit and let's talk now about your presence in the Nordics, because I know that 3rd-eyes Analytics is part of the Nordic Fast Track program at Copenhagen FinTech. So I'm curious to know what's behind the decision of a Swiss company to enroll in a program in the Nordics, and what can we expect to see from 3rd-eyes Analytics in the Nordics in the short and in the midterm?
Yeah. So I mean, as said, the company was founded in Switzerland 2015. And the value proposition, I mean, we had, for example, the ESG criteria that already included beginning of 2018. And we had the full planning and optimization. So we had market entry effectively beginning of 2018. That was at a rather early point in time, and we felt that we were just ahead of the wave. Holistic advice was not in everybody's vocabulary at the time, nor was that planning. And what we've seen is that in the Nordics, I would say these topics are a little bit further advanced. And we started in Switzerland. We've acquired clients first in Switzerland, then we expanded to Germany. We have also an own subsidiary in Germany. And then we were looking at what markets will be next. And we acquired a client in the Nordics, and we've realized with that client that the Nordics are extremely interesting, because I would say these topics are just a little bit further advanced compared to the DACH region in Europe. Hence we decided to hire somebody for the Nordics and participated in the Helsinki FinTech Forum, where we made a very good experience. And the obvious consequence is it's not one country in the Nordics, it's a couple. So we're focusing on those countries, and one of the key consequences is obviously then the Copenhagen FinTech Forum and the Nordic Fast Track program.
All right, well, just to close, tell us what's 3rd-eyes Analytics' vision?
So we believe that clients should be treated in a differentiated manner. It should be automated in order not to increase costs. And last but not least, we want to make sure and have a leverage that sustainable investing is, or even impact investing, where we also have certain solutions, is made accessible to more clients. And this is why I decided at some point in time to have a B2B approach to leverage our capabilities in this regard and have, I would say, nature or climate benefit the best way possible with the biggest leverage we can have, and that's B2B and not B2C.
Well, Marc, thank you so much for taking time to speak to us today. We of course look forward to learning more about 3rd-eyes analytics at Nordic FinTech Week in September, so we look forward to seeing you here.
Yeah, same here. We're looking forward, and yeah, talk to you soon.